I have a Kindle Unlimited subscription that I never use, so let's use it. Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is a channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on, and talk about some books. Kindle Unlimited is one of those things that I bought for myself ages and ages ago, like a subscription to this, and thinking that I would use it all the time. It would quell my constant need to buy books, which I clearly have not been able to quell recently, and I have ended up just really not using it. So I think I'm going to start doing some regular KU vlogs just to read some of the books that are out there, see what's out there. I've heard romances on Kindle Unlimited are just a lot more juicy than traditionally published romances because there are less like barriers for what you can and can't do on Kindle Unlimited. So let's pick a couple of books that I'm going to be reading this week on Kindle Unlimited and pick a bunch of different genres, pick a bunch of different things, and yeah, get to reading. So I've got my Kindle Unlimited page open now. It's a lot of like smutty fantasy romance and a lot of smutty romance as well. So there's definitely sort of a specific genre that I'm going for on this particular platform. Let's see what we actually want to read. One Kindle Unlimited series that I have been reading almost religiously is the Lady Hardcastle mystery series. So I definitely think this is going to be one of the books that I give a read this week, but let's find another one. So do we want romance or do we want fantasy romance? Lotus and Still Beating up the top there are very, very dark romances, very, very taboo as well, and I'm not really feeling that. I also know The Serpent of Wings and Night. This is apparently something that you should read if you're a fan of like A Court of Thorns and Roses, Sarah J Maas, that sort of stuff. Apparently it's kind of similar to that, so maybe that will be something that I pick up. As for what I'm going to read right now, let's go for Heartless by Elsie Silver. Now the reason why I want to pick this one initially is because a booktuber that I really, really enjoy watching the videos of, Chandler Ainsley, I think she read Heartless and really, really enjoyed it, and I want to see what the hype is all about. Apparently it's about a single dad who is looking for a sort of a nanny, I guess, for his child, but he's a very, very attractive man. So every single woman that he interviews for this job seems to want more to do with him than they want to do with his daughter, which is naturally a big problem for him because he's trying to trust this person with something that's incredibly precious to him. Enter the female lead character who apparently doesn't have a lot of experience with kids. I believe she knows this guy through a friend or something like that. She takes on this nanny sort of role, and soon enough sparks start to fly between the dad and her, and I guess they build a cute little family together. So I'm gonna get started on this book straight away and I will let you know my thoughts about it in a bit. So yeah, let's get to reading. It is the following morning and I have both started and finished Heartless by Elsie Silver, and I gave this book 5 stars. It was so good. I loved it so much. I literally sat in my bed all of last night and just read until 1 o'clock in the morning. Basically read this in one sitting. It was that good. Before I get into that, you will have seen from my b-roll that I went to Waterstones in Piccadilly yesterday. Ben had to go into the city to go and get a tattoo done in the afternoon, and then he went out that night, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go into the city too, and I am going to spend some of the gift cards that I got for Christmas and for this sort of well-being program that my work has at the moment, where they, you know, give you some money to go spend on something to do with wellness, and for me that is books. I am so lucky that my hobby is also considered a wellness thing. I will include that haul in another video which is coming very, very soon, a book haul while I go through everything that I've gotten before I went on my book buying ban and since. But yeah, that is basically what I did yesterday. I spent like 2 hours in Waterstones just browsing, just having fun, and like I didn't even realize that Waterstones Piccadilly has these little couches that you can sit on while, you know, you browse, or you can read in there if you want to, and I just think that is amazing season, so I went and I chilled for a bit, and I honestly had the best afternoon ever. And then I went home and read Heartless for my entire evening. My review, oh my god, I need to get into that because it was so good. Firstly, I just really loved the two main characters in this story. I loved Willa because she was fiery and passionate and willing to go to bat for anybody that she cared about. She was just so passionate about the people that she cared about, but then she also had this hidden layer of insecurities and everything that made her go into these almost like anxiety babble moments where she just wouldn't stop talking. She'd just, you know, fire off all the things in her mind, and I thought that that was such an interesting and sweet quirk for her. As for Cade, I thought he was the perfect sort of grumpy hero with a heart of gold. The way he interacted with Luke was beautiful. The way Willa interacted with Luke was beautiful. Luke, if you don't know this book, is Cade's son. And I mean, the way that these characters grew and changed and developed as people, you know, Cade becoming more open and willing to, you know, just be himself and accept everything that he'd been through as a kid, and then Willa just kind of having some responsibility, having time to settle and experience a life where she's not constantly on the go. I just really loved how the characters changed, and especially when you get that big sort of reveal at the very end. These characters' lives are literally going to change forever from that point onwards, but the way they handled it I think was really mature. I love those two main characters, and then I loved all the secondary characters as well. They gave me the perfect sort of small town family vibes, and they just were such a beautiful little unit. And I mean, Luke was the absolute standout character for me because he was just so cute in the way that he would literally say whatever came to his mind and force the other, it was almost a way to force the other characters to deal with the things that they were potentially trying to like shove to the side or not acknowledge. I really enjoyed the writing. It was very straightforward, but it was very immersive, and I was definitely immersed in this story from the get-go. Like, I felt the tension in every single one of those moments between Cade and Willa where they would try to fight the fact that they were clearly attracted to each other. I liked that there was like a really long period of time in the book before Cade and Willa got together, because I mean, it's not something I usually like in a romance, but in this particular romance it makes sense because there's a kid involved, you know, so you have to take things a little bit slower. You have to make sure you're serious and all those sorts of things before you get into a relationship with someone. And I liked that that was really fleshed out in this story. I absolutely loved that Cade fell first and that he was very much pining after Willa in a very intense way. I thought that they were a little bit out there with some of the sort of propositions I guess they made to each other, especially in public and especially very early on. And I didn't love the sort of heavy reliance that Cade had on this sort of age difference between them. I think that was slightly overdone. At the end of the day, their relationship was really beautiful, and it felt mature in the way they handled different situations, especially, like I said, the big reveal at the end where they take time away from each other. My favorite thing I would have to say is something I wasn't expecting, because I am a third act conflict girly. I love a third act conflict. I love the tension, I love the angst, all of that sort of stuff. But in this book, there really wasn't one. And I found myself really enjoying that. They reached this breaking point where they knew their relationship would change forever and they had to figure out how they were going to deal with that. And I think that was a really perfect third act conflict in this situation, especially because when there's a kid involved like Luke, you can't have the sort of tension and angst like you usually would have. So all in all, I really love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I had such an amazing time with it. I'm so glad that I read this, and I cannot wait to read more from Elsie Silver. I'm kind of annoyed because I only found out literally this morning after I'd finished this book like last night that this is the second book in a series, and I haven't read the first one, but I obviously now know how the first one ends because I've seen that relationship in this book. So I'm gonna have to go back and read the first one and then read the third one, but I'm not gonna do that in this video because the first one is not Kindle Unlimited. Now we have to pick the second book that I'm gonna be reading in this video. So if you saw my Kindle Unlimited sort of screen at the moment, you'd see there's a lot of fantasy on there. There's a lot of like romance, there's a lot of smutty stuff, because that's just what my Kindle Unlimited is for. It's the place where I go to read the easy things. So I've got Pestilence by Laura Thalasser on here, which is the first book in a series. I definitely do want to read that, but I don't know if I want to read that next. I've got A Word So Fitly Spoken. I have never heard of that before. I have no idea what that is. It is by T.A. Lawrence. I'm not hugely set on that one. What I do have though is Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue, part of the Souls trilogy, book 1. This is one that I know Becca in the books read, and I think it was in her best books of the year or something like that. So I think I might give this one a go. I believe it's a fantasy romance. As for what it's about, the blurb says, Leon, I earned my reputation among magicians for a reason. One wrong move and you're dead. Killer, they called me, and killing is what I'm best at. Except her, the one I was supposed to take. The one I should have killed, I didn't. The cult that once controlled me wants her, and I'm not about to lose my new toy to them. Ray, I've always believed in the supernatural. Hunting for ghosts is my passion, but summoning a demon was never part of the plan. Monsters are roaming the woods and something ancient, something evil is waking up and calling my name. I don't know who I can trust or how deep this darkness goes. All I know is my one shot at survival is the demon stalking me, and he doesn't just want my body, he wants my soul. Okay, I'm intrigued. It's a fantasy romance one. I think I just said I don't really feel like a fantasy romance, but I've heard good things about this book. It's a very, very long one, so it's not going to be one that I'm going to finish in a day, but you know what? I can try. So I'm going to get started on reading that book, and I will let you know my thoughts in a bit. But yeah, as for right now, no plans today, just reading. So I'm going to get to that. Jumping in with a very, very quick update. I'm now about 60% into Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue, and I'm enjoying it. I definitely should have done a bit more research about this book before I jumped into it, because it is a lot darker than I expected, and there is a lot more going on than I expected. Significantly more smutty than I thought it would be going into this book. I don't know why I didn't think it would be like this. Like the trigger warnings at the beginning should have really, you know, prompted me to think that it would be this kind of book, but for some reason I just didn't even look at those, and I went straight into the book, and wow, I've been gobsmacked in some of the scenes that I've been reading, which blushed a little bit sometimes, but no, I'm still enjoying the book. I think it's good fun. I think it's not the sort of book that I'm reading critically. It's not the sort of book that I'm like thinking too much about as I'm reading it. It's got a fairly basic sort of fantasy plotline, and you know, devil gets summoned. Devil's been summoned by this horrible family and been trapped by them for a really long time. All of a sudden gets kind of freed by this girl who he starts to fall in love with, even though he's definitely not the sort that's ever had those sorts of feelings before. He makes girl question her entire life, and then things kick off from there. Obviously I'm not at the end, so I can't tell you kind of how that whole situation evolves or anything. There's definitely a sort of edginess to it in the way the characters are described and everything as well. Like everybody's got piercings, everybody's got like tattoos, everybody's got something about them that gives them that little bit of edge, which I like because it's not something that I see a lot in a lot of the other sort of romances and everything that I read, especially in fantasy romances. You don't hear about those sorts of things for your sort of main two characters. There are like little issues I think with the writing, like some awkwardly phrased bits of dialogue, some moments where it's clearly not been proofread completely because there are little errors with sentence structure and little errors with like word choice where it doesn't make sense, and I have to reread the sentence in my head in order to fully comprehend what it's trying to say. But yeah, it's just like a good fun read. It's nothing that I have to think too seriously about. I'm since realizing after picking up the two books that I've read that this is definitely going to be like a romance themed vlog. That's definitely the kind of books that I'm feeling like picking up at the moment, so I guess that's a perfect timing for Valentine's Day. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep reading Her Soul to Take. I don't know how much I'm gonna have to say before the end of this book because it's not something that I feel like I can comment on in any length until I get to my review, and even then my review won't be that long. But anyway, book stuff aside, for life stuff, I went out for coffee yesterday with a friend, which was really nice to just take a beat and take a break from the book and go and do something completely innocent and fun and nice. So I went out for coffee with my friend at the Waterstones, which let me tell you, that was a lesson in temptation because I had to go into a Waterstones and my friend was already there and she was waiting for me, and I had to walk past all of the books that I wanted, all of the books that were calling my name, and go straight to meeting up with her. But before I did leave, I did end up buying two books, which again, I will come on to in a bit. And then today I'm gonna go and see my sister in the evening. She and I are gonna go for dinner, drinks, something we haven't really decided yet. She's actually leaving for Australia at the end of the week and she's going back home officially. So definitely trying to make the most of catching up with her before she goes. And yeah, just spending the evening with her and enjoying that time. As for the little baby book haul, these are two books that I bought after filming my book haul, which I think is either coming out soon or has already come out. I'll link it up above if it's already come out. If not, keep an eye out for it. So these two books won't be in that book haul because I've already filmed that. So I figured I would mention them to you now. And that is firstly King of Wrath by Anna Huang. This is the author that wrote the Twisted series. It's about a billionaire CEO who had never planned to marry until he's forced into an engagement with Vivian Lau, who is a jewelry heiress and a woman that he hardly knows. Because blackmail has forced him into this engagement, he's going to do everything he can to destroy the evidence and hopefully not catch feelings along the way, but naturally it is a romance, so I'm hoping it's going to be a fun little enemies to lovers, and I guess it'll be a bit dark and everything because I guess that's the kind of Twisted series. They're sort of like a light dark romance in a way. So that's the first book. And then the second book is Final Offer by Lauren Asher. This is the third book in the Dreamland Billionaires series, which is a series that follows three brothers who own this sort of theme park, think Disneyland kind of thing. And each of them, I believe, in order to gain their inheritance relating to this park or gain their position relating to this park, have been set tasks by their either father or grandfather, I can't remember. I think one of them had to get married before he was able to, another one, I can't remember. This guy has been tasked with spending a summer at the family lake house before selling it, I believe. Naturally, he meets an old childhood friend and I guess sparks fly and they fall in love. So those are the two books that I picked up at Waterstones yesterday. I guess my book buying ban is not going very well, but I picked them both up with gift cards and everything. Sorry, I'm looking really shiny today. Just ignore that. Yeah, that's kind of my update for today. Keeping it short, keeping it simple, keeping it sweet. I'm going to get back to work now because I'm on my lunch break and I have very little time left on it because I've been spending the whole lunch break reading because I am addicted to Her Soul to Take. But I'm gonna go get back to work and then I'm gonna go see my sister this evening. I'll try and get some B-roll for you guys and hopefully finish this book so that I can tell you about it tomorrow. It is a Wednesday. Please excuse the not so fabulous lighting. It is very, very early in the morning, so the sun hasn't really properly risen yet because it's London, so it's like pre 8 a.m. so the sun is just non-existent in the sky, but we're making do with what we've got. I am super, super exhausted this morning because I went out last night to see Pretty Woman, the musical, with one of my friends, and don't get me wrong, it was a fun musical. It was definitely a really fun musical, but it definitely wasn't something that I personally loved. I don't love the storyline. I think it's the musical you go and see if you loved the movie and it like has sentimental value to you. But for me, I had never seen the movie and I don't have that attachment, I think, to it that other people might have. The musical for me was just kind of not a great storyline. If you don't know it, it's about basically a hooker falls in love with a billionaire and reforms him, I guess, into a good person. But along the way, she deals with all sorts of judgment from him and from the people in his life. And I mean, even I think like the music aspect of the musical wasn't amazing because like you see these Pretty Woman posters, they have the woman on the front of the poster and she's the only one on this poster. And you know, she's beautiful. She's this beautiful woman. I can see why they put her on there. But then if you actually look at the musical itself, she doesn't have that many musical numbers that are just her own. Like there's no, my favorite thing about musicals is the big ballad where everything falls apart and so the main character sings this big ballad, and that just didn't really happen in this musical. And the main guy in the musical got a lot more sort of singing time, I guess, and I didn't love him as a performer. In my mind, you've got to have tension in both a louder and like softer volume in terms of your singing and like the volume that you're singing at, and he would just sing tension at a loud volume all the time. Like he'd never have those soft moments at the end of a ballad where you can feel like the pressure in your chest and the tension in that line, but it's sung so quietly. He kind of belted out everything. Anyway, that's a very, very long ramble about that musical. I didn't love the musical, but I did enjoy having the evening with my friend. We went out for dinner at the Seven Dials Market, which I think I included some clips of in my B-roll. I got this amazing steamed bun thing, I can't remember what they're called, and then some seaweed covered fries, which were interesting. Probably not something I'll eat again, but it was an interesting experience. Anyway, you don't care about all of that stuff. What you're here for is the reading update, which is that I have since finished Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue, and I've picked up my next book, which is Pestilence by Laura Thalassa, which is the first book in the Four Horsemen series. But going back to Her Soul to Take, I sort of enjoyed this book. I gave it 2.5 stars. It definitely got old towards the end. I really was into it at the beginning of the book, but then as it became this book with no plot, just entirely made up of like sex scenes and smut, I just kind of lost interest. It felt like the same thing over and over again. It wasn't sexy and exciting anymore. It was just repetitive, and the plot really took a back seat. Like there was a whole third, I think, of the book where it was just, there was nothing happening in the actual story. I liked that our two main characters, Leon and Ray, were sort of unashamedly themselves by the end of the book. Leon was definitely unashamedly himself at the beginning of the book, and then he sort of calmed down, I guess, and became this very devoted hero who was very much in love with his heroine. I liked that by the end of the book he was unashamedly in love. Like he was more than happy to put himself out there to save her and to talk about her and all these sorts of things. And then I liked that Ray had this fun sort of quirk, I guess, or I guess it's anxiety really, where she would just kind of go on a word ramble and she would just spit out words and she would like word vomit. And then I think towards the end of the book she became really confident and what she said became more measured. She became more controlled, and I liked the growth, I guess, that we saw in both of those characters. Not that there was much growth outside of just that sort of those two minor things, because at the end of the day I don't think this book is really about following your characters through some massive arc. It's kind of just enjoying the smutty read while some semblance of a plot happens in the background. The side characters were clearly there just to get you interested in future books in this series. I assume the side characters are who the future books in this series follow. So you didn't really get any time with them other than to introduce you to who they are and potentially get you excited about the dynamic of their relationship. The atmosphere and the sexual tension was definitely really solid at the beginning of the book, but like I said, it really began to peter out towards the end as it became really, really repetitive, and I just completely lost interest. The tension was gone because there was nothing really between these characters other than just constant physical and very violent sex scenes. As for the writing, I think there were a lot of like little minor errors that it was clear that whoever had proofread this book hadn't done it with like the fine-tooth comb that I personally like. It was just some things where, like, you know, two words are spelt very similarly and they went with one word, but I think they meant to use the other word because the meaning of the two words is completely different. So it was there were a few moments where I had to go back and reread that sentence and be like, oh, I think they meant to say this. I also think that the dialogue was sort of awkward between Ray and Leon at times, but I mean, that happens when you're making big declarations like this and there's not enough character growth built behind it. Like I said, there wasn't really any plot in this story. I don't think the pacing was amazing because we had that whole third of the book right in the middle, which was just nothing happening. So it kind of got really repetitive in that section of the book. If that is something that you go into this book wanting to read, those sorts of scenes and those sorts of scenes only, then you are going to love this book. I wanted a little bit more plot, a little bit more backstory. I liked the way that this book seemed to open up this conflict in the larger world with the gods and the demons and everything, so I'm hoping that becomes more present in future books rather than this one where it was very much just about these two characters. But yeah, I would have liked a little bit more going on behind the scenes and a little bit more understanding of all the different characters and even the villains, and understanding why they wanted to wake the god other than just they thought that the god would make them powerful in some way. Unfortunately, I didn't love this book. I think it was fun, but it wasn't quite as developed as I wanted it to be, so I gave it 2.5 stars. But as for what I'm reading now, I'm reading Pestilence by Laura Thalassa, which is, like I said, the first book in the Four Horsemen series. As for what this book is about, I'm going to read you the Goodreads blurb because I'm not far enough in to really give you a proper synopsis, and it says, "They came to Earth, pestilence, war, famine, death, 4 horsemen riding their screaming steeds, racing to the corners of the world, 4 horsemen with the power to destroy all of humanity. They came to Earth and they came to end us all. When pestilence comes for Sarah Burns' town, one thing is certain, everyone she knows and loves is marked for death, unless of course the angelic-looking horseman is stopped, which is exactly what Sarah has in mind when she shoots the unholy beast off his steed. Too bad no one told her pestilence can't be killed. Now the horseman, very much alive and very pissed off, has taken her prisoner, and he's eager to make her suffer. Only the longer she's with him, the more uncertain she is about his true feelings towards her, and hers towards him. And now, well, Sarah might still be able to save the world, but in order to do so, she'll have to sacrifice her heart in the process." It kind of sounds fun. It's definitely another sort of smutty fantasy romance, which I'm totally fine with. I'm intrigued to see how this relationship between the two characters develops in this story, especially because the point I'm at now, all of that stuff has kind of happened minus the growing feelings for each other part. So he's trapped her and he's I guess, taken her prisoner and dragging her all around to different cities as he's trying to make his way from where he is to wherever he's going. It's not really clear where he's going or what he's doing. So I'm definitely at the part of the novel now where I don't really understand how what's happening at the moment is going to turn into a loving relationship, because it's very antagonistic, it's very like dark, but that's normal. I'm only like 60 pages into the book, if that. So I'm gonna get to work and read this book on my lunch break. As for where I'm working today, I'm not working from home and I'm not working in the office. I'm actually working at a friend's place. My friend Tat, who is also my maid of honor, she's got the house to herself this week because her partner is away somewhere, I think for work. So she asked me if I wanted to work from her place a couple days this week and like keep each other company. And you know what? That sounds amazing. I would love some company when I'm working from home. Someone to just chat and shoot the breeze with on some of those like duller, quieter moments, or someone to bitch about work to when things get stressful. So I'm gonna go head off to Tat's place and I will update you guys when I'm a little bit further into Pestilence. Maybe at the end of the day I'll have smashed out a decent chunk of this book on my lunch break. I don't know. We shall see whether I actually do any reading today, because obviously I'm with a friend, so like my lunch break might actually be spent relaxing. I don't know. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next clip. Hey, it is time to update this vlog. It has been quite a while actually since I last updated you guys for the Kindle Unlimited vlog. Basically, I went into this massive reading slump and did everything I could to get out of it, including completely binning off the last book in this vlog and jumping into other stuff because I just lost all motivation. But anyway, I think the last you guys heard, I was reading Pestilence by Laura Thalassa, which is the first book in the Four Horsemen series. I actually got quite a fair way through this book, I think like 200 and something pages in, and then proceeded to DNF it because I just lost interest completely. It felt like the same thing over and over again. Pestilence and the girl he was with, who I can't remember the name of for the life of me because it's been so long since I read this, but they just go town to town to town. She'd start to feel things for him again. He'd then do something horrible like let people die when they were in his presence, then she would hate him again, and then they would move on to the next town with some heroic act in between where he saved her from something like hateful people. I don't know. It got really repetitive. I struggled to really see where any romance was going to form between these two because of everything Pestilence was doing. Like, I could not imagine falling in love in any way with a person that was like willingly killing everybody and didn't seem to see a problem with that. I know it's not supposed to be realistic in any sense of the word. I know it's supposed to be about the Four Horsemen and the apocalypse and all that kind of thing, but seeing all those connections that were made between the main heroine in the story and the various people that she'd go and stay at the houses at, and then proceeding to watch them die, I just couldn't really get behind the romance there, and I just got really bored with the story. So that is the end of this vlog. It has been a long time since I read it, so I guess I could say apologies for taking so long to get back to you, but you guys wouldn't know because it's just the next clip. But anyway, that's the end of this vlog. Let me know what you thought of the books that I read, if you've read any of them, if you've not read any of them but are now keen to read some of them, or just let me know what you're reading at the moment, whether you're loving it, hating it, all that sort of stuff. Come and chat to me in the comments down below. I love talking to you guys and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. It is a super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!